All right. Okay, we are live. Yay!
Cool.
Thank God it's Friday, you guys. Happy Friday. I wanted to pop in here today with the amazing Joseph Brittain, who has been training with Full Circle Coaching for about a year now, just over a year. And I just wanted to celebrate him because he's had such amazing success. So we're going to keep it short and sweet, but we are going to get into the numbers because I know, the proof is in the pudding, and actually knowing your numbers and being able to see the improvement in them is where it's at. And there's no denying that you have had success, but when you get to see it on black and white and in your numbers, it's kind of just more positive reinforcement. So let's get right to it. So Joseph, introduce yourself. How old are you? Where do you live? What do you do for a living? All that good stuff.
Yeah. You said Joseph. I live in Savannah, Georgia. I'm a civil engineer. Work for a consulting firm. I've kind of found a niche where I do like design and permitting and construction management for landfills and surface mines.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
then, so
How old
yeah.
are
So
how, how old are you?
thir- 30 years old.
30, new age
30.
group. Yeah, you
Yeah.
jumped up into the more competitive age group, right? Did
Yep.
you feel a difference from, I mean, you've only been, how long have you been a triathlete? Did you just first start with me, or did you do triathlons before we met?
I had done two sprints before we met. So this is going into my third, the first year I did two sprints,
Okay.
and then last year was our first, year,
Yeah.
working together. And so going into, my third
Okay,
now.
cool.
So I've
So
really
a
been
bit of
doing
a
it about
veteran, a bit of a
2 years.
veteran. But honestly, I can tell you your improvement in the last year, the last 12 months has been like insane. And that's why I really want to celebrate you. So let's go back to how we first met. So we met at the Ride on Ryan up in Savannah last year in May, actually, because the race was in May last year. And you put a bid in for the raffle prize, which was the beginner try program, right? And you did pretty good at that race already. I think you got first in your age group, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what your time was last year?
Last year it was like an hour and 14 minutes.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So you decided you won the raffle, and even though I'm in Miami, we knew we could coach you long distance. So you started doing the beginner try program, and you were signed up for, I think, an Olympic over the summer and maybe another sprint. Is that true? Like for the
Yep.
summer? Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, so you got right to work. So I would love to hear your experience about like going from kind of doing things on your own to actually having a coach and some accountability and like looking at the numbers. Like how did that change your training?
Yeah, it was a totally new style of training for me. Really, I signed up for the Ride on Ryan, just because, it was probably 2 years before I kind of started, my fitness journey, so to speak. Where I kind of paid, and I was mainly doing like run clubs and Orange Theory. And, if I had a sprint triathlon coming up, I'd be like, oh, well, I need to go, so I'd swim for a couple weeks,
Right,
like 2 or 3 weeks or something before the race. But,
right.
you
Not
know,
really, not really any structure for
ex-
triathlon.
exactly, not
And
any
why,
structure.
yeah, why did you want to do triathlon? Like what made you go from just general fitness to wanting to actually do triathlon?
Yeah, I mean, I'd enjoyed the two races I'd done. You see the clips, of people, people doing the Ironmans and things, and it looked really cool. When my uncle actually used to do triathlons when I was younger, so it was kind of
He was
just,
your inspiration.
yeah. So, it was just cool. I knew, it's just
That's
something
cool.
that I'd kind of seen, but never
Yeah.
really
And you got
participated
the bug.
in.
So you got the
Yeah,
bug. And is he proud of you? Does he know about your success in triathlon now?
yeah. So we've taught some,
You
and
guys
it's
should race together. That's pretty cool. I love it. Okay, so we started training together. We started creating more structure in your training. We started doing your testing. So we did your swim test, your bike test, your run test, and you were riding a tri bike or a road bike in the beginning.
I was riding a road bike in the beginning.
Yeah, and no power, right? No power
No,
meter.
no
Yeah.
power meter.
And then your swim was probably your limiter of the three sports. Is that probably the truth, or what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think once I went from the road bike to the tri bike, at that point, my swim was probably, comparatively where I was the most, not behind, but where I had the most to gain to kind of some of the
Right.
other
Of
people
the
and
three,
stuff.
like, yeah,
Yeah,
your swim, it wasn't that you weren't a good swimmer, but compared to the bike and the run, especially after you got a tri bike and a power meter,
yeah,
you start to up level everything pretty quickly. But, with the video analysis, we were able to coach you, even though you were in Savannah, we were able to give you feedback about your head up, your hips down. I mean, your head
mhm,
down, your hips up, getting your kick better. And I remember seeing that progression from, every time you would send in a video that it would get better and better and better. And I remember you did, I think, two races in the ocean. And I felt like there was a huge, improvement in your ability to just experience all the chaos of that swim. Do you remember that Olympic distance race that you did? I think it was in Jacksonville, maybe?
yeah. It's St. Augustine
St. Augustine, that's what it
was
was.
the ocean swim, and like you say, I was nerve. It was the first one where I kind of, watching the waves come in that morning where started to get a little nervous. Like,
Yeah.
oh man, like, what was I thinking?
Right. Doubting your what was I thinking? How am I going to survive this? And I
Yeah,
remember you came out of there, but then you killed the race. I remember you got on the podium that day, but it was the first time you were on your tri bike too, I'm pretty sure, right?
it was. Yep.
And you were like, holy crap, what the difference is, right?
Hmm.
People, it's tri bikes and road bikes used to be a huge difference in price, and now they're the same price. If you're doing triathlons, you should be on a tri bike. If you want to improve your speed and your performance, tri bike is always going to be faster, and you're always going to have a better run off the bike. Did you feel a difference when you switched from your road bike to your tri bike, and then being able to run off the bike better too?
Yeah, I think so. Just because I was, you know, putting more effort in before to try to keep up with other people around, around me and things like that.
Right.
Before, um,
Instead of
you
paying
know,
attention to your own numbers,
yeah,
right?
not paying attention to my own numbers. I've definitely gotten better at that. So,
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, let's talk about like your races through the so you've always gotten on the podium. That was nothing's changed there.
mm,
And you could continue to do that. So through the fall, we just kept training, through fall and winter, but we did switch focus to the marathon, right? So
mhm,
you started, I think your first run test with us was like a 6:06 minute mile, and then you got down to a 5:35 minute mile. Right, I think it was right before your marathon, we tested you again. So that's a pretty
mhm.
good improvement in like a short period of time. And we weren't really training for speed. We were training for marathon, right? So we weren't really focusing on your VO2 max as much. But talk to me about your marathon, because your marathon was a killer time. Your goal was a 3:30 and you got a 3:25. So that was pretty impressive, right?
Mhm.
How did you feel on that run?
Oh yeah, no, I felt great. I think, like you say, it was one I had done in half marathon before, full circle. And I was, always had, just as I've kind of gone along, it was just kind of felt like the next step to do a marathon, and I, wanted to do it. And, um, as we started training, set that 3:30 goal, and it felt, challenging. Like, I definitely felt like, I feel like it could 50-50, either way, if I can do this or not. And then, like you say, we trained, probably, close to 3 months for that, and, had the pacing, planned. And it was a hilly course, but I generally negative split it. And, it was just that last 3 miles of that race. Once I knew, like, at that point, it was like 3 miles left. And, at that point, I knew I was going to come in under 3:30. And I just, had the fastest my fastest 3 miles were those last three. And it was just, like you say, I think one of the better races I've had.
Yeah, so that is a huge secret that so many athletes mess up is they start too fast, right? And they aren't able to negative split that last 5K. And you actually did hit it perfectly despite the hills, right? Despite the
Mhm.
hills taken out of your legs in the beginning. You did hold back though. You did hold back. I just looked back at the numbers, just a minute ago. So I was so proud of you. And when you hit that, I knew that our upcoming goal for Florida was going to be awesome because the fact that you could hit that kind of a run on a hilly course in a full marathon, having that ability to run strong off the bike, even though we did kind of argue a little bit about
Yeah.
about your ultimate goal pace. But you did the one thing I want to commend you on is you just put in the training, right? I give you the workouts, I give you your zones based on your testing and you implement, right? You hit the intervals, you use your watch, you use your power meter. And there was definitely things we needed to work on, like your RPMs, right? Your RPMs or
Mhm.
your steps per minute on the run were really low, like when we first started working together. And I just look back there, you averaged a 177 for the half marathon off the bike in Florida. And that is just amazing. So do you feel a difference by running differently, like the way I've coached you to run with falling forward more, faster feet?
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, I think especially, I had a tendency to like overstride, and I think, I wasn't really conscious of cadence. I would just, to go faster, I would just try to, push harder and not necessarily just try to, um,
Think about
you
your
know,
feet.
think about my feet as well. Like I
Yeah,
would just try to, I was
most
just
people
having
do.
these long strides
Yeah.
instead of, you know,
I mean, don't get me wrong, that you do go faster with a longer stride, but you also go faster with faster feet, and you
mhm.
tend to have less injuries with the faster feet because you're landing with your foot right underneath you as opposed to way out in front of you and heel striking, right? And I can't remember, did we get you to change your shoes or not yet?
Not yet. I'm wearing my Zero shoes right now, so I'm good. I wear them almost
Round.
daily, and
Okay,
I'm
good.
comfortable walking around in them. But
Yes, that's my next goal with you is to
yeah,
start getting running in those. I mean, maybe not the full marathon, but definitely for the shorter races. But yeah, so
yeah.
strengthening your body. How are you with the strength training? Did you ever do strength training before as far as training for triathlon?
Like so, and not like Orange Theory, they do some like dumbbells and stuff. I did so, and I used to lift weights in the past, but directed at triathlon, no, or
Yeah.
I hadn't,
Was it different to have the strength that was specific to triathlon, all the one leg stuff, all that kind of stuff? Was that different in your strength training that you had ever done before?
yeah, I would say so. Like um,
Do
that
you feel like it helped you? Do you feel like the having the focus of the strength for the specific sport, do you feel like it helped as far as
yeah,
your performance?
yeah, definitely. I mean, if anything, I think that's something that like I could improve on. If I, like you say, I I did, really well following the plan, but sometimes if I missed workouts, sometimes they were my
Yeah,
strength
that's
workouts.
usually
Yeah.
yeah, that's usually the thing that goes out the window.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
So, I
cool.
mean, I could definitely, that was kind of my thought now is now that we kind of got this right, I felt like I was gonna, try to focus on strength, more,
Awesome. Yeah,
following
because
this.
the stronger you are, the more power you can develop in the swim, on the bike, and in the run. So it's great, especially after you just did your A race, which was Florida, Gulf Coast, that we're going to get to those results in a minute. But now is the time to reset. Like we just talked about it, that you're going to do your testing because I know every single thing we're going to test again is higher. So we have a higher platform to work from, right? So we're
Mhm.
going to optimize your strength right now. And I am going to ask you what your next goal is. But let's go back a little bit to a month ago, because that was your 1 year anniversary. Actually, it was like 11-month anniversary for the ride on Ryan. So you went
Mhm.
back and you did podium the first time. But our goal was actually to get, first place overall. Now, this is where one thing you can't control who shows up on race day, but you did have a really big goal. If you weren't going to get first place overall, at least you were going to improve your time.
Yeah.
So, do you remember how many minutes you took off your sprint try for the same exact course?
It was about 9 minutes or so. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
about
yeah.
9
It was
minutes.
it was like 9 minutes and 30 seconds faster in 1 year on the same exact course. I mean, that's huge. I mean, your tri bike definitely had a role to play in it, but did it feel different racing in April versus last year at the Ride on Rhine?
I felt like weather-wise and everything, it was pretty similar. You know,
But
I
did
think
you
it was
feel different? Did you feel
oh,
stronger, faster?
oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, like you say, definitely on the run, like, I mean, I think I had a good race at Ride on Ryan, but, I think, I also feel like I could have done, better. I think I felt like my bike in that one, I got kinda caught between like the front group, the front 5 people were like way ahead of me, and then there was kind of me on my own and I didn't,
Right,
felt
you
like
didn't
maybe
pace yourself.
I feel
Right,
like maybe I could have pushed a little harder, but I mean
right.
it was like you say, it was still a great improvement
Yeah.
over 1 year and uh, you know,
And it's a
felt
shame that
strong.
those guys who weren't there the year before showed up, and but at least they were
Yeah.
nice about it and they're like, "Hey, come train with us," right? It's always nice to have faster people to train with.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was super proud because that race holds a special place in my heart, and I was happy that you at least got to be back on the podium again. But that really wasn't your A race. That was just a race, a training race, right? Can you imagine if that was your A race? I think that you could have achieved the goal of getting at least top three overall instead of, I think you got fifth place. Because our goal was not the sprint, it was the 70.3. And we would have done a lot more VO2 max and a lot more speed work if Ride on Rhine was the goal. But you had decided that you wanted to go longer. And were you nervous about the race at Florida and Gulf Coast?
Yeah, I wasn't nervous until like 2 days before, like I felt prepared, knew we were doing all the work and then
Yeah, you
like you
did.
say, and then you get down, you kinda I feel like I always remember I wouldn't say I remember the good parts about racing, but, like, I feel like I always forget about, like, how nervous I get before races sometimes, so
Yeah.
then
So
it's like,
what do you personally do to handle the nerves?
I like you said, I think the warm up the day before definitely helps,
Yes.
so, that definitely helps just kinda doing a quick swim, bike, and run,
Yeah, it
always
just you remember, "Oh, yeah, I trained for this." Like, I don't know why I'm so freaked out. And,
yeah,
I made a post last week about I did a live about people who show up to the race and they're really, really nervous, but the people that are able to overcome the nerves are the people that are actually prepared, right? You
mhm,
did your warm up and you remembered that you are totally prepared for this event. You had put in the time on the swim, you had put in the time on the bike, you had put in the time on the run to have an amazing day. And I have to say, you literally did. You kind of blew my mind with how fast you went. And I love to have a goal time, right? I use the Tri Calc 3 to have our race prediction. And you and I went back and forth, I think 3 times
yeah,
about your run off the bike because I've personally been at that race I think 5 or 6 times and the heat is brutal, right? The heat is so brutal. So you could have the goal of having that whatever minute mile off the bike, but you literally start to melt down and I was just wanted you to be a little bit more conservative in your goal time, right? And you proved me wrong and I'm so proud of you for that because I was asking you to be a little bit more conservative, but I think it worked out in your favor to
yeah.
have gone beyond it rather than setting an even higher expectation of yourself. I'd rather have you set a lower expectation, be more conservative, and then blow that out of the water. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it definitely feels good, coming in,
Your
ahead of
goal.
where I
Yeah.
thought I'd be.
So what was your TriCalc 3 for the race? The whole thing. It was 5. I can't remember the
It was like 5, it was a little under 5:20, like 5:18,
yeah.
5:19,
And then what did you hit?
uh, 5 hours, 8 minutes.
Woohoo!
Yeah,
Blew it away. So I'd love
yeah,
to review the race real quick because 2 days before you guys got there and somebody told me from the group that the water was closed, like the beach
yeah,
was closed for rip currents. And I'm like, oh no, please no, I don't want to have a repeat where they cancel the swim. So I was like
yeah,
so excited when you guys got to swim. But let's go through the whole race. Like, how did it feel? You did your warm up in the
yeah.
morning. Like, were you ready to go race morning?
Yeah, so, yeah, like you said, probably got up 3:30-ish in the morning, had, like, 3 eggs and some sausage and a sweet potato,
Perfect.
went and set up transition, and like you said, we hadn't had,
Notification. Yeah.
yeah, on the wet,
You
so
didn't know
then
if you were swimming, right?
yeah, so then, like you say, probably 4:30 in the morning, they said, that it was open and, be ready to swim, so,
That's awesome.
and like you say, at that point, I hadn't been in the water yet because, it was double red flags, so I didn't get the swim warm up, that day
Day
before,
before,
so,
right.
went out there and I did, I just swam to the first buoy, and just kind of treaded water a little bit. And I sat there and talked to this guy for, 3 or 4 minutes about
Perfect.
what we
Yeah,
were going to do that day, and then I just swam back in and I felt so, like that was kind of the point where like my nerves went away was like
that's
10 minutes
awesome.
before the race started,
I love it.
I
I
kind of
love
got
it. And there was
adrenaline.
no wetsuits this year, which made it even a
Mhm.
little bit more challenging. So you could have gone a little bit faster on the swim, and when you came out, your numbers were off because we just expected you to have the wetsuit. But how did you feel when you got out of the water?
I mean, I felt good. Definitely that first little bit of the run after being horizontal for 30 minutes, like I was a little wobbly. I was like, oh man, I can't, you know,
Where are my legs?
yeah.
Right, so you did a 34-minute swim, which is really respectable. Like I said, I know you could have gone down to that 32 minutes with if you had the wetsuit, but I was super stoked about the swim. And so then you get on the bike, and let's talk about the bike because I feel like it's really unfair for the athletes that don't want to cheat and draft like yourself
Yeah.
to have to race against all of these other cyclists in the race that don't care about cheating. So you messaged or you let me know that you had to burn a few matches on the bike to like get around these massive drafting packs. Was it like insane?
Yeah, there's probably only two
A
or so
few big
big
ones.
groups
Yeah,
that, it
that's
was
just
kind of,
insane.
a couple times it's like, like you say, I didn't draft. Sometimes you get caught up where you're like almost,
You
it's
you can't
almost
help it.
it's
Yeah, you've
almost
got to make a
unavoidable.
conscious effort not to. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Yeah.
But, yeah, so I, went out, on the bike and kinda stayed in that, lower part of my zone 3 for the first part and,
Of your power. Yeah.
of my power, and, we had a headwind at that point, and, on the Tri-Calc 3, 20 miles per hour was, the goal of mine for the race,
Yeah.
for the whole bike, and I was in a headwind, and I was, just under the goal for the race.
Perfect.
So we were coming up on the turnaround, and that was kinda like the point where I was like, I feel good, there's this pack ahead of me, so I just, I kinda was like, I'm gonna try to get the 20 miles per hour average. I know you tell us not to look at speed, but I was glancing at it
That's
occasionally,
okay. Right.
and I just felt like it would be a big confidence boost if I was like, I can get to the turnaround, and know that I'm starting with the tailwind, and
Yeah.
I'm at 20,
Cool.
so that's kind of what I did. And so like I was right at a 20 mile per hour average, when we turned it around,
Perfect.
to come back. So, and it was kind of that, so then I felt like I had a great, maybe 20 miles or so after that, and then, probably last 15 of the bike was when, like you said, I could tell I was starting to get tired and, there were some packs and I chose to pass them. And then I, stopped, drank water, ate a gel, and then they passed me back. And I'm like, and then then you're kind of like, dang, I felt like, I might have tried to push a little too hard on the bike there at the end, a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, your average 21, right? And I feel
yeah,
like the wind was actually in your favor most of the time. And I feel like you did take advantage of that. So that's awesome. I
yeah.
feel like it was smart racing. I mean, maybe you burned a couple matches on the end of the bike that you could have used on the run. But honestly, all in all, I feel like you kept up with your nutrition and then you used my secret, which was a little caffeine, towards the end of the bike. Do you feel like that helped you?
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, that was, yeah, like you said, that was helpful. I had, I saved my water bottle that had the caffeine mixture in it for the end, that
Cool.
was kind of the last one I pulled, and then
Hey,
did the caffeine gel too,
awesome.
probably about 15 miles left or so.
Yeah, that's perfect. Well, cool. Okay, so you came in from the bike, and then of course your legs feel pretty heavy. You had a really fast transition. I was super happy with the transition. And I was actually thinking, you got out there early enough that the heat wasn't really as awful as it has been for someone who's out there a little bit later, right? So talk to
Mhm.
me, like, how did it feel on the run? Did it feel like scorching yet or not so much in the beginning?
No, yeah, it was like you say, it was the weather was, couldn't have asked really for better weather,
Yeah.
and so swim and bike and had all, gone good and I knew.
Yeah, you're like right on track. Were you like
Yeah.
stoked? Like you were
Yeah.
like, "Oh shit." I meant and running is your strength, right? So you
Mhm.
really must have been feeling really, really good when you got to the run.
Yeah. So I was like you said, I was feeling really good when I got to the run and it was, kind of overcast, mid 70s,
So good.
so it was great. And I kind of knew I was like, if I can run a 140 half marathon, then I'd break 5 hours. So, you
Yeah.
know, that was the only time I deviated. I kind of went a little fast, coming out on the run just because I was,
Got excited.
I was excited,
Yeah.
So yeah, so I did a little bit, sub, 8-minute mile, like the first 6 miles or so on the on the half marathon, and then it might have could have been more conservative because then second half, sun came out, and then I definitely dropped back to like the 8:15, 8:30. I still felt like I finished strong, but
You did. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I just look back at the numbers. I mean, you still averaged an 8:17 minute mile, which I think
yeah,
we were arguing when you and I were arguing back and forth if you're going to hold the 8:30, just to be a little more conservative. But I do, even in those conditions, I feel like if you had held back those first 3 miles, just like on your, you always can go faster. If you hold that back the first 3 miles of a 13.1, typically you can always go faster the last three. And you kind of did that on the marathon. And it's harder to do it on a triathlon because you feel so good coming off the bike. You kind of just feel like, oh my God, I feel amazing. But it always usually comes back around. If you're doing the half marathon around 7 to 8 miles in, you're like, okay, now, everything's hitting me. And on the marathon, it's like between 17 and 20 miles that things start to fall apart. But I really think that, even though you took walk breaks, you got your hydration, you did everything you needed to not totally blow up. So what were you thinking about during that time? Was it a struggle? Were you using your mental skills, or like how did you really like stick to, push to the end in that race?
yeah. Yeah, like you say, yeah, I took some, walk breaks like at the aid stations to get ice and just make, I'd kind of take like, just a couple seconds, to
Yeah.
get, at the aid stations. But yeah, it was definitely more of a mental battle than I'd had in any race in the past.
So what do
Like
you tell yourself? What is something that you told yourself?
yeah, so mine was, mama didn't raise a quitter. So I just, even though I don't think she would think I was one if I walked some, but that's just what I told myself.
That's
I
that's like my new favorite mantra. It
yeah,
doesn't apply to me, but it definitely applies to you. And I love that mantra. I think it's perfect for you. And I love that that was what helped you like push through at the end, because it does take those little types of things to help you be like, oh, well, why does it even matter anyway? Right. You
yeah,
could have just as easily been like, yeah, it got hot. I needed to walk. But no,
yeah,
like you were like, mama didn't raise a quitter. I am not pushing. I'm not stopping. I'm pushing hard to the end. And you literally took 10 minutes off of your predicted time. So
yeah,
I I mean, I couldn't be more proud and more happy for you. And I'm just super stoked for this achievement for you. So it was like a perfect 70.3, for a very first time. I think it couldn't have been any better. Do you
yeah.
agree?
Yep, I agree. Yeah, like you said, I never had never in a race have I like wanted to walk before or not walk, like never had I had, the mental battle of where I was like, what's the difference between, you know, like
Just
knowing
walking.
that I was coming under the goal, was kind of like you had to,
You'd
Mm,
already achieved the goal that you set for yourself, right? And you were like,
yeah,
well, what's the big difference if I walk or not? But you still
yeah,
pushed through, you know?
yeah. Like you say, I want that, that was the first time, I ever kind of really like kind of felt like maybe backing off the pace some. So like I was pretty proud of myself that I,
And what's
had
cool about
had a
that
good
is
beginning.
because most people never find their edge, right? Because they're afraid of what's going to happen when they get to that edge. But the only thing that happened was, okay, you took a walk break. And then guess what? Because you had the mental fortitude and you did put in the training, you just got back right back to it, right? So I think it was actually perfect. We now know what that edge is. Now we know what to train, right, for the future. If you ever want to do another 70.3, we're going to be making sure that this kind of stuff doesn't happen again and you pace better, and you're also finishing those longer runs with a little bit more of a push so that you can do it on race day and it's not this mental thing that happens, right? So
Mhm.
yeah, that's awesome. I love it. Okay, so the big question is, what is next?
Yeah, I know. That's always the tough question.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think definitely spend the summer. I think I'm gonna do there's a sprint triathlon series, in Charleston,
Oh,
about
perfect.
2 hours from Savannah. So there's like it's a series, 3 or 4 races.
Okay,
So I
perfect.
think do those. I haven't quite committed just yet, but the Augusta, I want the Augusta 70.3 is on my
Okay.
mind,
It's on your
mm,
radar. Okay,
on my
cool.
radar.
I love
So
it.
that's
And I
September.
Yeah, that's September. It's 28th. Yeah, I have a couple athletes that are signed up for that and doing that. And that's always a standard race. The swim is typically fast because the current is usually with you. Sometimes it's wetsuit legal, sometimes not lately. But the bike is hilly. And the good news is you have hilly bike skills because of camp, right? You came to Ultimate
Mhm.
Tri Camp in February. Can you talk about that a little bit? How was that experience for you?
Yeah, yeah, I thought just having a week, is sometimes, it's tough balancing, everything
Life.
in your life and everything. So like just having that week, where you go in and like that's your focus, for the week was just a great experience, and doing it with, other people was, kind of helped me find, how much I like doing the group training. I, to before I'd never done a group bike ride. I'd always done all solo bike rides, came into camp and I was like, this makes it so much more fun. This is just so I've, like you say, kind of started to, find some group rides here in Savannah, and it's just,
Yeah,
definitely was a,
a big game
good
changer. And
game
how'd you like
changer.
the ice bath?
I felt good afterwards. I'm
That's
still,
all. Yeah, that's the secret. It hurts for the 2 minutes or 3 minutes that you're in, but it's so worth it at the end. But you were a trooper. You made it through.
I, yeah,
That's mental skills.
yeah,
Mental skills, big time.
yeah. I
Yeah,
didn't make it. I didn't make it look nearly as easy as some people, but
yeah.
I made it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we had some screamers out there, but it was all good. Hey, I commend you if you get in at all because it is a tough thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, so awesome. I just want to say, thanks again for trusting Full Circle Coaching and me. It's been an honor coaching you, and I'm so excited for the future because I just feel like this is just the beginning for you. And I'm happy that you are adopting, you're still doing sprints and you're staying short to get faster, because so many athletes just go long and then they get slower and slower and they wonder why they're slow, right? You've got to be out there. And if you can't have really good racing skills at a sprint distance, your ability to have really good racing skills at a half Ironman or an Ironman are not going to be there. Even though they're completely different animals, it's just the skill of racing and being able to adapt to the moment and handle anything that gets thrown at you. And the more that you can do it in a sprint race or an Olympic distance race, the more you can apply those skills to the longer distance. And that's how you keep getting faster. So I'm super excited. I'm happy you're kind of staying short for the summer. And yeah, I mean, honestly, you could totally be good for the Augusta. But I have a question. So are you interested in doing a full Ironman at all, or no, that's not in your wheelhouse?
I would say I'm interested. You know, I'm
Yeah,
not
it's
now
not
that
for
I'm not ready to commit. I don't know that I have it. I don't know that it's I don't know that it's on my radar. I think that, at this point, I have a hard time believing that, I'll have, started at like my first 5K since high school, 3 years ago, and
Right.
kind of worked up like 5K, 10K, half marathon, marathon to, sprint,
73.
Olympic, half Ironman, and then just be like, I have a hard time believing I'm just gonna be like, I'm good. I'll
Right.
stop right here. This is enough. But
Right. I
it's
don't
not.
think you should. Yeah. But I think you're smart to wait. I mean, honestly, you
Yeah.
can't go long and get fat, keep getting faster. And you're young, right? So you're young in the sport. So I'm with you. I'm there to support you as far as getting faster, a little bit faster, because you could be out there on the full Ironman course a lot less time, the faster you get, right? So I think
Mhm.
that's awesome. I think I like the goal. I like the plan. So it's out there somewhere. And then when the time is right, you'll decide. You'll decide on which one you want to do. Right?
Mhm. Yep.
Cool. All right, Joseph. Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey. Anything else you want to say?
Yeah, no, I appreciate your time, kinda letting me share a little bit and,
Yeah.
looking like you say, looking forward to kinda continuing, to
The
make
journey.
progress.
Yeah. Super proud of you. Super proud. All right. Wishing you guys well. Have a great weekend.
Alright,
Bye.
thank you.